Good evening. My name is Carl Penke with Langen Engineering. To my right is Matt Seckler with Stonefeld Engineering. At the outset of this project, SJP Properties recognized and realized that the design and accommodation for pedestrian movement and vehicular movement to this section of Morristown is extremely important to the success of this project. As a result, they elected to pair the expertise of Langen Engineering in traffic engineering with the expertise of Stonefield Engineering in traffic engineering. I come to the table with over 34 years of experience in traffic engineering, and many of that involving projects in Morristown, including the Morristown Hospital, the Epstein's redevelopment plan, Chancery Square, the Catano Deck, Century 21, actually involvement with the original planning for the redevelopment plan of this site, the Highlands at Morristown. So through the years, I've had quite a bit of experience in Morristown and understanding traffic and the flows and the needs to move vehicles and pedestrians through the site. Mr. Seckler comes to the table with 15 years of experience. He also has experience in Morristown, having been involved with the early planning for the Speedwell Avenue redevelopment plan. He's been involved with planning and reviewing this property for over 2, maybe 3 years now. And more importantly, he comes to the table well versed in terms of understanding the intricacies of the design of a roundabout in accordance with today's standards and design efforts. So it's a good team. As an aside, Matt and I are so aligned, we both pulled the same tie out of our closet this morning. A little bit of background before we get into our individual discussions that we want to provide you to tonight. In preparing to be here tonight, we've gone through a considerable amount of effort. We've had the opportunity to review and utilize the substantial traffic planning effort that the town recently went through with the mobility study with RUP and GPI. In fact, we were able to utilize their models as our base to tap into those models and utilize them to amend them and to work our solutions into them, to analyze them. In addition to that, back in 2016, when Stonefield first started their evaluations of the site, they began a significant data collection effort of traffic volume data on the roadways surrounding the project from Martin Luther King along Spring Street, along Ridgedale, down to Park, and out to I-287. When I came on board in 2018, we elected to redo that traffic data count and counted over 9 of the critical intersections surrounding the site, all to re-verify the prior data in 2016, all to re-verify the data that's in the township's mobility study. So there is quite a wealth of traffic information that has been created, an extensive creation of data over the last several years that all cross-verifies and verifies itself. The modeling done of the system is extensive, it's integrated, and it actually creates the ability to understand the interaction that occurs between the various signals and the geometries that occur on the roadway system. So that was very important to the project. We also had the ability to reach out to the traffic engineer for the Morristown Parking Authority and get his information on the plan deck that will support some of the other developments that are going on in the area. Certainly we've made projections as to the types and amount of traffic that would be occurring by the redevelopment of the Bigtown Shopping Center with this project. So that's been boiled into the numbers as well as other growth in order to take a comprehensive look at the roadway system. We even went a step further to ensure that our operational analysis and analysis of our solutions were feasible and could be implemented. And that step was to actually start to do preliminary design on real survey, so that when we're before this board, we're not just talking about coming in with a concept, with a roundabout that might or might not fit. It fits. It's been designed to a degree that we know it can work geometrically, it can fit geometrically, we've gone to the extent of looking at preliminary grading. So we're here tonight with a wealth of information that has been undertaken so that we could be confident what we were projecting to you was more than just preliminary analysis and preliminary suggestion that this is a viable alternative. It is a tested alternative. We've also had the opportunity over the last several months in particular to interact with your professional, Brian Proska of TPD. He was also very insightful. He's also very knowledgeable about roundabouts and roundabout design, and he provided quite a bit of information and input to both Matt and myself as we tested the proposed solution out here, and helped us bring us to where we are today and what we're presenting this evening. So with that, what I would like to do is tonight, Matt is actually going to take a few minutes and go through the design of the roundabout itself, some of the key features of the roundabout, and generally how it lays out and works. And then I'm going to step back in and talk about the operational analysis of the roundabout and what it means to the system, to give you a sense of what's happening and why this solution is something that is both exciting and a good fit for this, both this plan and for Morristown. So with that, Matt.
Thank you, Carl. Just to orientate the audience here, what we have on the screen before you, on the left-hand side is the aerial image of what you see out there today. We have Spring Street running in the, I guess, from the top left to the center of the screen. You have Mars Street, which kind of does this slight curve. You got Wilmot coming down to the bottom of the page. That's the existing condition. Everyone who's been out there knows the traffic issues that are experienced at this intersection, particularly during the evening peak hour. There are times in the morning peak hour, even on Saturdays, where you see a lot of congestion through this area. Obviously, Morristown gets a considerable amount of traffic that just passes through the area as opposed to traffic destined, so you're somewhat subjected to traffic that is not really coming to any of your uses, but you're stuck with dealing with the consequences of it. No. The intersection, which while kind of a Y-shaped roadway network is great for creating vistas from a planning point of view, from a traffic point of view, and there's a number of them in Morristown, you know can create some traffic issues in terms of operations. What you have currently is a signal timing that moves the Morris Street approach about 2/3 of the amount of time, the amount of green time. They get the green light, as opposed to Spring Street, especially in the PM, which sees just as much traffic, is somewhat choked and gets, you see extensive queuing in which it may take 1, 2, 3 cycles for cars to clear on Spring Street. And that idling, that queuing is not good for anyone. It's not good for the pedestrians, it's not good for the, it's not good for the vehicles, so the drivers. So you have this existing condition where there's a considerable amount of congestion. On the right-hand side is the design of our proposed roundabout. Now before I get into this specific roundabout, it's important to separate what people associate with the New Jersey traffic circle with this modern roundabout. This isn't what was in Ledgewood, this isn't what you see down the shore where you have these massive state highways that intersect at these circles at high speeds, at massive diameters, where the change of right-of-way may differ on each approach. You may have to yield when you're coming into the roundabout at traffic circles, or you may be yielding from the inside of the traffic circles. That's not what we're designing here. What we're designing here is an industry standard. In fact, it's being pushed by a lot of jurisdictions because it is being seen as a welcome alternative to traffic signals. And I'll explain the benefits of a roundabout from a pedestrian point of view and a vehicular point of view at the general scale. And Carl will talk about the benefits to this roundabout at this location when he talks further about his signal analysis, his intersection analysis. What a roundabout can do is it creates continuous movement around at slower speeds. So what you currently have at intersections like this, a stop-and-go intersection at a traffic light, you have people gunning it through the light to make it and then slowing down and stopping. At roundabouts, you actually proceed in traffic at around 10 to 15 miles an hour, so you're creating a traffic calming device automatically. People can't speed through a roundabout because they physically cannot deal with the geometry. So people slow down to 10 to 15 miles an hour at a pedestrian level speed. So you no longer have people flying through this intersection, they're going through a pedestrian level speed. which has enhanced benefits. Additionally, it creates operational benefits in peak and off-peak time periods. When you get to a traffic light in the middle of the night, you leave a council meeting and it's 11:30 at night, you get stuck at that red light and no one's around, and you're waiting, idling for 30 seconds for the light to turn green, doesn't happen at a roundabout. Roundabout, you proceed one after another through the roundabout at all times. The continuous motion of a roundabout, again, helps decrease that stop-and-go feel. You're basically continuously moving through the roundabout. Additionally, there are improvements as it relates to creating a sense of place. As I mentioned, Y intersections, from an urban planning point of view, at focal point, you see a lot of historic churches located on intersections like that, but it creates an issue from a traffic planning point of view. This roundabout, you have a new focal point. You have a focal point when you're coming from the green or coming into town from 287. You now, if you have a roundabout, have a new gateway, something to put in the center of that roundabout, whether it's something artistic, some type of landscaping. It creates a definitive sense of place, which leads to the pedestrian benefits along this entire corridor that we're proposing here before you. From the pedestrian point of view, there's a significant amount of benefits that we're carrying through from the site plan, which you see at the top of this page, through the crossing mechanisms. At a roundabout, what you have is actually shorter crossing distances than you have at a typical signalized intersection. If this intersection, as a signal, would have to get upgraded or widened, you're talking about 4, 5, 6 lanes of traffic that you have to cross, as opposed to 2 lanes of traffic at a time at a roundabout. In addition, there's a number of traffic calming mechanisms that you could implement. At a roundabout, you cannot do at a traffic signal. That includes in-pavement lighting, so in twilight or overnight hours, when a pedestrian wants to cross the street, they have lighting that appears so that vehicles know to slow down if someone's crossing. In addition, the rack of flashing beacons can be added to pedestrian crossings for roundabouts, and you can even do raised crosswalks. I know there's a couple raised intersections in town. That can be implemented here as well with textured features in addition. It does put the pedestrian first. It slows down vehicles, as well as the fact that you don't have to wait to cross the street. When you're at a traffic signal, the pedestrian is submissive to the cars on the roadway. They have to press the button or wait there for the 30 seconds for the light to turn for them to get a walk signal, and then they can cross. At a roundabout, the pedestrian has the right of way, and the cars are automatically slowing down to stop at a roundabout. There's been numerous studies that show that roundabouts have a much higher level of vehicular yielding to pedestrian crossings than any other type of intersection. As well, at a roundabout, when you are approaching a signalized intersection, most of the pedestrian crossings are done at the side of you. So they're out of the visibility of the vehicle when they start to accelerate. At a roundabout, the pedestrian has great visibility to any drivers coming through the area. So there are significant benefits to adding this roundabout as a pedestrian feature. As I mentioned, the queuing, and Carl will talk about the operations of this specific roundabout, but the queuing that you see on Spring, queuing you see on Morris is brought down significantly. So you're seeing environmental benefits, as well as the fact that the amount of pavement that we have out here is much less than what a typical traffic signal will require, so you have environmental benefits from a stormwater management point of view. This really helps carry that pedestrian connection that you see in front of this site towards the green by providing this sense of place, this roundabout. Now I'll turn it over to Carl to talk about from the vehicular standpoint the benefits we get from this specific roundabout.
So as I indicated before, from a traffic analysis standpoint, we just didn't focus on this one intersection. And we were able to capitalize on the prior work by the township, our own work supplementing that, and looked at the system, the road system, the mobility recommendations that IRUP and GPI previously made, how they would fit. And utilizing those models, we were able to insert a roundabout into that system to see what it did, what it does to the system, how it operates, how it influences the network, how it influences the adjacent system. Those analysis, as you know from traffic engineering standpoint, are generally focused on the peak periods of the roadway, which for all intents and purposes occur in the morning peak hours, 7:30 to 8:30, and the evening peak hours between out here about 5 to 6 p.m. Further in Morristown, the highest traffic flows we've always seen are occurring in that evening peak hour between 5 and 6. And if you want to just hit to the next slide, just hit a couple of high points in the PM peak hour. What we've depicted up on the screen is basically a couple of snapshots of what the analysis is showing us. And we go through a whole series of modeling. We use different modeling techniques, different analysis techniques to cross-check the results, and that includes a level of service analysis, it includes capacity analysis, it includes queuing and delay analysis of the intersections. So what's shown up here is basically over the course of that PM hour, a couple of snapshots of what the analysis is showing us. At the top is the existing no-build conditions in the future, which really, probably represent what you guys see out there every day today. The long queues along Spring Street, the difficulties getting out of Spring Place, queues coming off of Lafayette that at times can extend down to the green, or up to the green, and then we're down, or from our intersection up to the green. In fact, there's times when the approach to the green backs through the intersection and can lock up the intersection a little bit. Below that is the analysis results for the same time period during that hour, which shows that continuous movement result that Matt was talking about earlier, that frees up the flow through this node in the network, eliminating the long queues on Spring Street, reducing the queues both coming to and from the greens. And that occurs because what's happening with the roundabout is that continuous movement, the ability to take the platoon of traffic that comes from the prior intersection and not stop that platoon again and then stop it at the next signal. It allows that platoon to start to dissipate as it carries through the network, as it wants to go to Spring Street or continue on to the next signal on Lafayette. That free flow movement also results in some better and more efficient feeding to the downstream signals. So when those signals go green, they're fully loaded and they're ready to process the traffic rather than waiting for the platoon of traffic that may have been held up at this intersection. So what we're seeing overall by the introduction of the roundabout at this location is the introduction of a node in your network that is basically freeing up traffic. The residual impacts of that is it provides for the opportunity to provide better access to the redevelopment area than the prior solutions and thoughts on this site. Access to the shopping center has always been challenging. This provides the ability to design access that will accommodate the traffic flows that we project. All of this incorporates the development of this property. So basically, we're looking at a system, a traffic signal that, or a roundabout that's really designed in accordance with accepted and current industry practice and standards. From an analysis capacity standpoint, what we're finding in our analysis is that we are reducing peak hour delays, overall peak hour delays through the intersection by 40 to 50%, even with the additional traffic added by the development. It provides for increased capacity for future growth through the system, and it fits into, as a node, it fits into the overall network of the project. As Matt said, it also is designed to accommodate pedestrian activity that occurs through this area. In fact, it provides for safer pedestrian activity. A couple of other benefits of the roundabout is analysis have shown that crash severity is reduced, crash rates are reduced as compared to traffic signals, and environmental benefits of the site include reduced emissions and gas consumption. What I'd like to do is to take this from a static analysis. Matt and I know the numbers. We're going to give you just show you a quick clip of the PM peak hour. It's a clip right in the middle of that PM peak hour to show the freeing effects that our analysis is showing. It is an illustrative simulation. It doesn't include all the design elements of it, but it shows the freeing effects that our analysis is showing us.
Just a quick question, just from a technical perspective. So by free flow, you mean there's no signal, no stop sign control, it's basically just yielding and
It's
sort of
basically yielding gap accepting process, correct.
And how do pedestrians cross?
Pedestrians cross on crosswalks. Pedestrians would have the benefits.
But how do pedestrians get the break to cross?
They get the break by PED-controlled flashing. You've seen the rapid flashing beacons. Those elements are added in. When those go, the law in New Jersey now is to stop pedestrians at crosswalks. That is the state-of-the-art design on the corner.
Pedestrians just go when they go.
It's like a hawk.
It's a walk, basically, yes.
Can you explain that?
You want to
Yeah,
explain again?
so essentially, a typical traffic signal, you have to wait for the walk sign, you press the button, and then no matter how fast you cross the street, the signal still waits for the flashing don't walk, so you could be across the street and 10 seconds of extra time is lost because pedestrian already crossed and there's no one else waiting there. For this type of operation, basically, if you press a button, or you could even have the type where it could actuate, so somebody could notice that a pedestrian is ready to cross the street, then basically you have is these rapid flashing beacons that light up, alert the vehicles that the pedestrian wants to cross the street, and they cross. That could be tied to the in-pavement lighting as well. So again, overnight, you have that extra visibility at twilight with the in-pavement lighting. This type of operation has been, being added more and more. There's a roundabout in Westfield, in Princeton, near their train stations. There's a roundabout in Rutherford, right where a train station and bus stop is. So these roundabouts do exist in areas where there is high level
How are
pedestrian.
those pedestrian crossings timed?
It's basically the vehicle could pass through the intersection after the pedestrian passes. A true hawk design, which is the ones you see, it's like red lights that flash, those you actually typically have to wait until the light changes off of red. These pedestrian flashing beacons basically indicate once the pedestrian's passed, the vehicle could pass through. So it's less delay on the vehicle after the pedestrian passes.
With that, I think we'd like to turn it back to Roger to continue on our presentation this evening.
Morristown.